Welcome everyone to this first war room, and we have already some of the documentation regarding this war room session. Hey everyone, I believe we have enough people to kickstart the session. So I hope I'm audible properly, right?
Yes, Saurav.
Sounds good. Yeah. So first of all, welcome everyone to this first war room drill that we have, and we have already shared some of the documentation regarding this war room session. That is, we'll be starting in a few minutes. That war room was on Linux networking, Ansible, and security concepts. So this a war room session that we are going to discuss that will cover out the concepts of Linux heavily, networking, security, and automation, which actually covers out the Ansible too. So I'm sharing my screen. Just let me know if it is visible to you, so we can kickstart the session. Okay. So I hope my screen is visible, right?
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Anush, for uh, confirming the same. Okay. Now, like I believe everyone has got a chance to go through all the documentation that has been shared by us. So I believe you are having the context of what exactly we are going to talk in this session. But still, I'm going to repeat about the context and the problems that we have, and the same has been replicated in all the cloud providers by your cloud manager itself. So now in this overall session, we'll be actually diving deep inside the problem statement, and we'll be actually seeing how exactly to solve out a production issue like this. Okay. So let me first start with the problem statement that we have. Okay. So this is again a real story. Okay. So like I was actually working with a product based organization here in India, I guess around 2 years ago, where I have faced out the same problem statement. Okay. And like I was actually acting as an DevOps lead there. Okay. And I was having two different teams. The first team was actually BAU, that stands for the business as usual, that actually takes care of all the ongoing tickets faced by the developers or any of the support tickets that we take care of. And the second was the implementation team, which actually takes care of the cost optimization, migration, and basically this kind of activities and all. So this BAU team that we have, this is a team that is responsible for the production outage that we are going to get. So on a Friday, like it was a morning time, and we have got this issue. So let me first explain the issue, and then we'll be actually diving deep inside the technicalities of what is the problem statement, how exactly to solve the rules of the war room, the different like the different things that it involves, like the blast radius, the timeline forensics, why my system is behaving like that. We'll be actually diving deep inside each of the concepts, and we'll be exploring this whole war room in such a way that at last of the session it will actually give us a perspective on how exactly to solve production outage, not specifically this problem, but all the problems, like if you'll ask me in a generic way, you will be having an idea how to react in a production outage. So let's dive inside that. So to kickstart this production outage, let me first explain you about the situation that we were in at that moment of time. So I was acting as a DevOps lead there, and uh, let me write the details. I have already shared the detail in the documentation. Just I'm repeating the details so that if anyone hasn't got the time to go through the document, they will be having an idea of what exactly we are going to talk in this session. So I was actually acting as an DevOps lead in a product-based organization here in India. I was having these two teams: the business as a usual team, that is the BAU team, and the second team, that is the implementation team. And all the production outage is actually take care by this BAU team. Okay. So on a random Friday, actually it was a Friday around 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. IST, we have been reported this issue that there was a data science team, as explained in the documentation. They have actually raised out this issue to us that in their production of VM, some of the peoples are not able to log in. So initially we have got this data that some of the peoples are not able to log in. When we have asked for a much detail, then they have explained this to us that like in this example, I'm taking as a GCP, as in the cloud provider. You can take it as AWS or Azure. So this whole problem statement is designed in such a way that it doesn't have any dependency on the cloud platform that we are using. So just for a reference, I'm using on GCP here. So on GCP, they were having one Bastion server. So Bastion server is basically a jump server. And the second thing, they were having a production server. Now, this Bastion and the production server was in the same VPC, same subnet. Okay. Now, the total number of people that was supposed to access this prod server from the Bastion server was actually 30 only. The Bastion server was of, if you'll ask me about the operating system, that was of Linux, Ubuntu, you can take, and that was having 2 CPU and 4 GB of RAM. And we were having the production server that was also the same distribution, Ubuntu 22, and it was having 4 CPU and 8 GB of RAM. Plus, you can take it a 50 GB of storage has been attached to that. There's 50 GB of storage. So here, let's take actually 10 GB of storage. Okay. So this was the system configuration, and that was the number of users who was expected to use the production VM. Okay. On this production VM, now let's talk about the application. On this production VM, the data science team was actually they have actually deployed a backend application, which was a payment analysis application that was deployed on this VM. So only one application was actually deployed on this VM. That was the backend application, a payment analysis application. Along with that, there was a you can say scrapper was also deployed under that. So this scrapper was basically scrapping the data from this, and it was helping us to visualize in the visualizer in the dashboard that we have in the front end. So in the front end, we were having all the data from the backend, and the scrapper was actually a part of the backend application only. Okay, that was actually helping us to visualize the data in the front end that you can see. So this front end data, that was actually an important data to the customer, because on each of the day we were supposed to update this front end data for the payments and all and all. So this was supposed to be updated on each hour, on each day. Okay, and like as of now, this was a sensitive data, so actually team was manually updating that. So I mean, before that application, it was actually calculating the data like using automation, but the backend data science team was actually verifying the data, and then it was manually updating to the dashboard that you can see. That was the backend application that was deployed on this production server that we have, that was having this much of configuration that you can see. Both the Bastion and the prod server were in the same VPC. Make sense till now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, like out of this 30 users, there were like most of the users were from the DS team. So like around 25% of the users were from the DS team. And I guess two were from the DevOps and one was from the SRE team. So that was actually consisting of all this 30 number, you can say. Okay. Now I've already explained to you about the application that it takes. And since it was a Friday, the data needs to be updated in the dashboard. Okay. So like it was a critical data that needs to be updated on each hour. So like this data is actually critical to the organization. And now let's actually talk about the problem statement actually. That is the ideal setup that was supposed to be there. It was working totally fine, but on a random Friday, okay, the data science team lead have actually reported this issue, that out of this 30 users that you can see, we are having two different categories. First category is 5 to 6 users are able to SSH Yeah, I guess. Yeah. This basically 5 to 6 users are able to SSH inside the production system, but they are actually facing a issue that they like are you can say facing the lagginess while using or updating the data inside it. So that means if they are pressing any button, the action is happening after you can say 10 to 15 seconds, and that was painfully slow for them to work on that VM. So that was the main issue, that around 5 to 6 users are able to SSH inside the VM, but they were the VM was actually painfully slow to work with that. And then 7 to 8 users were completely not able to connect with the production instance that we have. So while actually connecting to the production system, they were first SSHing into the Bastion, and then from the Bastion they were supposed to jump in the production server. So while jumping into the production server, they face a timeout issue. So the first scenario that we have is few of the users are able to SSH, but they are facing a lagginess while using out the production system. That is the first problem statement that we have. The second problem statement that we have, that 7 to 8 users are completely not able to SSH inside the production system from the Bastion. Now, if that was a static data, then we could have actually come upon a solution statement. But this thing is actually happening intermediately or randomly with any user. So let's suppose as of now it is working for me, but after an hour I'm not able to SSH. Again after an hour I'm able to SSH inside the prod system, but it is actually happening randomly with any user. So there is not any fixed user to which this issue is happening with. So it was a pretty random to any a user, and we were not able to identify any pattern, you can say, out of it. So this was actually happening randomly with the users out of 30, and they were facing this kind of issue. And apart from that, let's suppose 12 to 13 users were able to SSH and use out the VM in a good way. So only 12 to 13 users out of 30 were unaffected from this production issue. Rest were affected in two different ways. Now this 12 to 13 user that you can see, this was again not the same user. So it was happening randomly. So let's suppose for this time only a user XYZ is actually lying in this category, but after an hour this same XYZ is lying in this category, and after an hour again it was lying in this category. So this was happening randomly with the users, and out of 30 users that we have in the platform, 12 to 13 users were able to use out the production VM smoothly, and 5 to 6 users were facing out the lagginess while using out the system, and 7 to 8 users were completely not able to SSH inside the system. So we have been reported this issue at 11 a.m. IST. Okay. Now the problem was, if we are not able to update the data on the dashboard, then it will actually cost us a lot. So this overall dashboard and the data was too much critical for us, that the CFO was also involved in that, because that was the last and the final product that you can say. So that was a critical data that needs to be updated on each hour. This was a critical production outage that you can see. That means if we are losing one single minute, it will cost us a lot. So we are actually bonded with less time. So that means each and every minute in this production outage that we have is going to be count. So we have to explain the upper management. If we have actually take let's suppose for this production outage, if we have took around 3 hours, so we have to explain each and every minute of these 3 hours, that why we took that long. So this is supposed to be solved within minutes or maximum 5 to 10 minutes, because each and every single minute that we have is going to cost us a lot. So that was a super critical problem. That's why we have assigned this as at least P0 as of now. The priority zero, that is the super critical priority to the system that we have. That was actually reported to us at 11 a.m. Since some of the users were able to update out the data, but again, that was actually not enough numbers to update the data on a regular basis. So we have to fix out this production issue in no time. And that was the whole setup. Like I have explained you out the context of the problem statement, of when it is happened, what was the ecosystem and the environment of the infrastructure. Now let's talk about some of the details. Okay. Now, if you'll see, let's talk about the blast radius. So, since this was actually internal to the organization, no external users were harmed out of it. But the main issue was actually the productivity of those 30 engineers who were dependent on this bastion to the prod server that you can see. And out of this, at least 50% of our strength is actually facing on the same issue. That means 50% of the engineers are lagging productivity. That is going to cost us a lot in terms of the dashboard data. So that was supposed to be fixed anyhow within no time. So the first blast radius was actually, it was internal to the organization. Okay. And some of this, so basically the service that is deployed under this production VM, the backend application, that was actually running very smoothly. There were no issues that we have faced in the application from the front end. Okay, so it was actually running very smoothly. All the graphs and the monitoring dashboards that we had, that was totally great. So application was actually working smoothly. That means services running. Okay, but the team's productivity is down. Now, since this was internal to a team, internal, like all those 30 peoples were sitting inside the same office. So, like, if you'll ask me from the graphical impact that we have, the geographical impact. So, we were in the same office. So, all the 30 peoples were in the same office. So, that was actually impacting just a single reason that we have, that was AP South 1. Okay, so it was only happening in this region only. Okay, so that was the impact that we had at the problem statement. So let me just explain you out the upstream flow that was supposed to be there. So upstream flow was like this, that this is my local machine. Okay, I was actually jumping to the bastion server. And then from the bastion server itself, I was jumping into the production server. And then on the production server, I was updating the application, which was reflecting in the dashboard that we have. Okay, so that was an upstream flow that we had. Okay, and that was supposed to be fixed as soon as possible. So at that moment of time, we had just spin up the war room, and we have started debugging this issue. So since this whole problem statement has been already provided to you, so now, I believe I have got the questions from only few of the people from different squads, and they were asking. Okay, sorry, my screen sharing just stopped. Okay, so I'm sharing back my screen. Just let me know if it is visible. I hope so. It is visible now, right?
Yes.
Great. So, we have already provided all the documents that is needed to solve this production outage, and I have got the questions only from few of the people that they were really asking out the questions which is exactly relevant. So like if you will see the idea behind actually solving out a production issue or a production outage is to actually first isolate the problem statement, then stabilize the current system, then fix it or correct it, you can say, then is to prevent it from not happening again. So if you'll see, this is the correct way in which we should be fixing out a production outage. And to go on each of the step, like ideally you should be asking a lot of questions regarding the forensics, like the timeline and everything. Like if like anybody has made the changes in the production VM, if anybody has made the changes in the Bastion VM. So like a system, like if a system is actually working by its own, so like I believe if until unless there is a manual intervention, a system will not break, right? So until and unless we have pushed anything or any random thing related to the application or system, it will not break, right? So the first thing is to find out the timeline and the forensics of what exactly has been happened. Before that, you need to ask out few more questions. So I believe a few of the people from squad 3 and 4, they have asked us a lot of question regarding this problem statement. So let's actually get inside what to ask first before actually jumping into the problem statement and the solution before. So first of all, okay. So first of all, before, sorry, this is, okay. So first of all, actually, before jumping into the production outage, you need to ask some questions related to this ecosystem and the environment to yourself or to the team that you are having. So the first question that you need to ask, and you need to understand this first thing, that how exactly your system is working. So, like, if I'll ask you, nobody has asked me that how exactly this whole system is actually working in common. I know, like, most of you are having idea on how exactly SSH is actually working, but I don't think so that like anyone has gone into that much of details that exactly we are going to talk here. Okay. So first, a question that we need to ask if we are going to solve any production outage, that is how exactly your own system is actually working. That thing you need to understand first if you are looking to fix out a production issue. So before doing that, you need to have an idea of how exactly your system is working. That is the first and the main important thing that you need to have. Then you need to ask that, like, after having an idea of why exactly your how exactly your system is working, then you need to ask that why exactly my system is behaving like that. And if you are having an idea that how exactly your system is working, and then if you will ask that why exactly your system is behaving like that, then this will actually start a series of a question that you need to ask. The first thing and the most important thing is the timeline. Now, what is this timeline? So, like as I've explained you that each of the system that is in the production, that actually works smoothly until and unless there is a manual intervention or there is any change done by any DevOps engineer, SRE, or the developers. Only then it will start breaking. Otherwise, if there is any system issue, any system configuration that has been changed, then only like it will start breaking up, right? So the first and the most important thing that we need to ask is about the timeline. So whenever you will exactly get into a production issue, you need to ask out the first question that you need to ask out this, that from like what time you guys have seen this specific issue. So let's suppose in our case, I will be asking out the data science team lead who has actually presented the issue, that from what time, what specific time have you guys noticed this issue in the production. then we have to actually troubleshoot like around that time only. So the first and the most important thing is to get the idea of when your system is has started breaking and behaving like that. For that, we need to have the timeline forensic that should be clear. Okay. The second thing that we need to have the blast radius, that which are the things is getting affected by this production outage. So it is like, is it internal? If it is internal, it is like it is actually degrading the team performance, or is it just related to the cost, or is it related to the reputation of the organization? So we need to uh, divide the blast radius in three different parts. The first one is the system specific. So is it a system maintenance issue or this kind of issue? The second is it a user issue? That means the user is actually getting affected. From the user only, the it is actually connected with the reputation of that organization. Okay. And the cost. So if user is getting affected, although like it will affect the reputation of that organization along with the cost. So we need to have an idea of what exactly is getting affected. Is it the system? Is it the user? Or is it the internal team who is getting affected from that? Okay. Now, you need to have, then after all this, like if you are having all those ideas, then you need to jump out on the common fixes that you can try. Like in this problem statement, we can try a different common fixes, like restarting the SSH and like SSSD and all. So like in this statement itself, I wanted to ask you guys what all solution statement that you guys have tried, and what is the conclusion from your side. So like if anybody has tried anything, like uh, maybe they can suggest her to check out the production like allocated resources of CPU and the memory. Same goes with the bastion of CPU and the memory, even to restart the SSSD daemon that we have. So any of the solution that you guys have tried till now, you guys can speak about it. So like anyone who has actually tried this and wanted to speak about the solution statement.
You mean the
Sorry,
exercise or in general?
made of system, right?
I guess I missed it. I
Sorry,
need to
go
repeat
ahead.
it.
Sorry, I'm saying you are asking about the week one assignment you gave, or in general,
No, no.
you know.
I'm like asking specific to this war room solution. So anybody has tried this war room solution yet?
Yeah, I like we created. I particularly created the setup, the production
Mhm.
and version setup, and then created the scripts to
Mhm.
replicate the scenario of connection drop, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but since I know the fix, so we have introduced
That
the
is
bug, right?
like if you'll ask me, Anuj, that is not the fix. I mean
Uh-huh.
that we have done just to replicate the issue. That is not the
Yes,
fix.
yes, yes. That's what I'm saying. I have done the setup, but
Mhm.
not the fix.
Okay.
I thought like what you give the assignment is to do as a replication. Mhm.
So we are trying to understand sort of from what is to see what could be the issues. You aren't
Yeah.
just you're just going through the brainstorming session right now. Did I get that right?
Exactly.
Okay. Probably first try and see what are changes have been done, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
See like if there are any resource consumption has been done, or like have there been any, like maybe it could also be like some sort of a underlying infrastructure issue itself. The EC2 instance, wherever this is running on, there is an underlying hypervisor issue from AWS point of view. Uh, there have been any network changes on the AWS perspective that can also cause this sort of issue.
Okay. So let me just summarize it. What exactly you have said. So first of all, I believe you have said that this can be an underlying issue that is not in our control, right? So first you said it can be an underlying issue, underlying hardware issue.
Issue. I mean, if we reboot the box, maybe the hope is it will
Okay.
respawn on a different infrastructure.
Okay. you have said to restart this or
Right.
reboot
And then
the
if there's
VM
any
itself.
authentication issue with triple SD, maybe that has some issue. That is, that particular service is little sort of bogged down.
Okay,
Maybe we restart that service.
you have said to restart this SSD daemon. Okay,
Triple SD as well, if
yeah.
that is what is being used for authentication.
Hmm. Okay, so we have got two different solutions from Santosh. The first one is to start or restart the SSD daemon that we have. We have restarted that, but again after a minute the issue is completely the same. We can't see any changes, so this is not working. Even we have restarted the VM as Santosh sir mentioned. This is also not working. Anything else?
Hmm. We start looking at the logs and
Okay. Logs of what?
logs of the SSH where we are trying to do. And because that's the first thing we should start looking at because that shows the health of the system.
Okay.
And we need to look at the timeline where when it's happening. And also we don't I don't know about the metrics solution for resource constraints, for example. That also needs to be checked.
Okay. So let's go line by line. You have mentioned that you will be watching out the logs. So I believe logs in the production VM or the Bastion VM, if you are, if you can.
If we are trying from Bastion, then it's we should look at in the Bastion and then in the production both. We
Okay.
should start tailing to understand where
Okay.
the issue is first of all too.
So like on the Bastions, like at the start, we have gone into the Bastion server and under the var log, we have actually checked out the logs of the system and it was looking completely fine. And then similarly, we have actually checked out the prod system. There itself, we have found one specific issue that was related to metadata.
So, sorry, the issue is on the production host. So we are able to log on to the production Bastion host, and from there on, we are able to connect to the production host. That's where the issue is. Sorry,
Mhm.
maybe
So
maybe I misunderstood.
like all the users that we have, like out of 30, all 30 users are able to log in inside the Bastion server that we have. But the issue is actually connecting between the Bastion to the prod.
Okay, and it is intermittent.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So you mentioned there is a change in the metadata. Can we look at the AWS CloudTrail to see if there have been any changes or any config changes that have been done overall since the time the issue started?
Okay. Good choice. Okay. So while actually checking out that and the cloud metrics also, we have found that nothing has been changed specifically by any of the team members. So all looks clean.
Okay.
Do you also have the session timeout? Let's say time to leave
Okay.
for any session.
So I believe someone has suggested this session timeout.
Yeah.
Okay. So this session timeout is actually inside this SSSD, like SSSD configuration file, and there itself the timeout is actually pretty huge. You can take it as, let's suppose, 90 seconds, and this is actually pretty enough. And there itself we have found a different configuration, like the maximum users that has been allowed, the allowed users, the denied users, all the configuration, everything looks good here too.
Can we also check the CPU utilization, memory utilization, and
Okay.
the process? Is there any process consuming maximum memory?
Okay. Okay. So while actually checking out the Bastion resources that was assigned to CPU and 4 GB of RAM, it was having at least of 10 GB of storage. So we have found, so like it was like it has never used 20% of the allocated resources in his whole lifetime. So that was an over provisioned resource by us. And similarly goes for the production system that was having 4850 and the maximum that it has used is only 30%. It was also over provisioned. And the zombie processes, there were no zombie processes running.
And when we run free and top, everything looks good.
Looks good, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I guess someone is pasting in the chats. So let's go line by line. Can we
What
check
is that
stat?
problem with the metadata in SSH, the
I'm
log?
sorry, what?
You specified that there was some problem in the production log in the metadata.
Okay.
What is the difference in
Okay, so let me actually give you a hint about this metadata. So ideally, we have to attach some metadata in the EC2 instances or the GCP VMs, and we do have to enable this metadata. If that metadata has not been enabled as yes, then it will throw out the random errors. So we were if we are going to talk
Okay.
about GCP, so let's suppose a metadata was there of os dot guest dot attributes, which was exactly set to false, and because of that we are getting this metadata. So we have like in the GCP VM itself, we have enabled that to true, and we have fixed out that issue.
It's not relevant. Okay.
Okay.
What's the purpose, Saurabh, of this metadata? Like,
I mean, if that specific GCP a VM is actually used by too many people, like in this
mhm.
case only, that has been actually used by 30 people. So it's ideally said to enable some of the metadata that is actually provided by GCP by default. So if we will search about os.gist.attributes in GCP, that needs to be enabled as true, and if it has been disabled, then obviously nothing will happen but a error, uh, like it will throw in the log. That's all.
Okay, but isn't the system was initially designed to handle this load, right? So,
Yeah.
which means it was not tested with these 30 users before.
So like let me share you the link of that. What is data? You can go
No, I
to.
mean, because many times this question comes, right, when we do debugging, right? It was working before, now suddenly what happens, right? And
Right.
that divert us from, realizing the uh, thinking in the direction, right? That, okay, this could be the issue. So that's for the reason.
Yes, I agree with Anuj's point because somebody might have suddenly started overwhelming the system because they were causing a lot of data transfer over that SSH because of the way they were using the system. I mean, just a thought, like, I thought I'll just air my voice here.
Okay. So like if you'll see specific to that, so that was actually disabled from the very start. Okay. So we have actually forget to enable that, but like ideally you should be enabling that, like if that specific VM that you have created in GCP is going to be used by too many users, so the idea is to enable that. But that was actually disabled from the very start, so it was not something that has actually caused out that specific issue, because this is actually something that was disabled from the very start. Yeah.
No, my question is whatever the metadata you are saying, right? This is out of the box. Like it's very difficult, at least for me and many people in the call, right, to identify this as the root cause. So, what debugging steps are we following to reach the conclusion that okay, this attribute needs to be tweaked for this? So, I want to understand the path to reach this conclusion.
Okay.
To yeah.
Like uh, like let me just explain you about that. Yeah. So like if you'll ask me, the whole session that we have actually designed in this way only. So if you'll see after this, we'll be actually talking about how exactly we SSH inside, uh, like specifically from a jump server to a production server.
Mhm.
So that we are going to talk in detail. That
Mhm.
if we do a SSH, then what are the things that actually happen under the hood, like the TCP handshake,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
authentication, the OS policies, and everything that happens under the hood. So like
Okay.
up until now, we are just scratching the surface only, so
Okay.
we haven't gone into the details and all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Would you check also any firewall D commands or any IP tables as well to see if there is any rejections coming in? Are all the ports listening
Okay.
properly as
Okay.
well?
Okay. So let's start with the ports thing. Okay. So initially, like using the best practices, we have disabled this port number 22, and we have created a custom port for SSH. Let's suppose 111, and that was enabled in the firewalls as well as the production VM itself. So the ports were enabled in the firewall rules, and security groups were also looking fine. All of the subnets and VPC was also looking fine.
But did anyone spin up any Docker containers on this particular VM and trying to use that custom port?
Not exactly. So like the backend application and the VM itself, nothing has got changed there.
Are we open to like what do you call it? Use re-enable SSH on port 22 to see if that sort of
Yeah,
fixes it?
absolutely, absolutely, you can. Absolutely. So let's suppose like if you want to revert it back from 111 to 222, so you just have to actually change out the SSD configuration along with the firewall routes. That's it. Back
But
on the port number
that
22.
that does fix the issue in this scenario.
So this was something that we have done while creating out the VM, and the VM was running successfully from the last 3 to 4 months, and that issue is not something that has been introduced by this change that you can say.
Okay. And when you run a netstat and you don't see the particular port 111 is being, you don't see any conflicts.
I know. So, like initially, okay. So let's actually talk about the networking stuff here also. So we have actually checked out few of the things. That is there any packet loss that it is happening? Okay. So we have used out the ping, and we have actually transferred 10 of the packets to the google.com, and then we have seen that is there any packet loss. Similarly, we have actually tried to check all the protocols, that if the necessary protocol is being enabled, if there is any like the data loss that is happening while the communication that is happening. So everything was actually looking good in terms of the ping, in terms of the net stat, the trace route command, everything was good.
And did we check the resolve.conf?
Okay, now let's talk about resolve.conf. So we have actually checked out the configuration that was handling in the resolve.conf. So there itself, there were multiple fields of the timeout allowed and all. So everything was looking good from that point also, and we have also checked that. So yeah, everything was looking green there.
One thing, Saurabh, when we say resolve.com, right? So this is where the DNS is configured, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You must know. So is it could be the case you have the multiple DNS server and there is some timeout on the DNS servers, and hence uh, there are no fallback DNS servers, things like
Okay.
that.
So like if you will SSH inside the GCP VM, and if you will go into this
Mm.
resolve.config file, there will
Yeah.
be three different DNS servers that will be actually configured inside that.
Mhm.
The first would actually depict your like inside of a server, name
Mhm.
server, and the second one will be your IP server, and the third will be your internet server. Okay,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
everything was actually configured right, and we can't see issue in all of these three names.
Okay.
And going back to the systemctl command to see if there are any other services which are down, everything is looking hunky dory there.
Yeah, so we have also actually checked out the active services. Everything was looking good there.
Um, everything is looking good. are
Yeah,
we open to cloning any of the volumes and spinning up a new EC2 instance if we see similar behavior on that particular instance?
I guess I missed it. Like if you can actually talk to it.
Sorry, like I'm trying to see if we can spin up another EC2 instance with a similar configuration to
You can.
see if we are seeing a similar issue and what is the result.
Okay. So you have actually tried to spin up a similar VM, and similarly, the Bastion was actually supposed to connect with that VM, and it was looking good here. All the
Okay, so this
30
is
users
particularly this is specific to this
specific.
uh,
We
production
cannot
host.
replicate this.
Yeah, that was also my question as I was thinking, and somebody said that if it is a problem with the load or the number of users connecting in development, it is smaller size system, but in production it's bigger size system. But the network or whatever reason, the traffic or the overwhelming of the system might have happened. So how do we replicate that scenario? How do we kind of stretch our imagination and really set up and simulate that kind of thing? Um, are there any ways to do that, or we have to explore given the time that we have to solve the issue, right?
Like if you'll ask me, to exactly replicate the same ecosystem or the environment to a different environment, it is quite not possible. But yeah, we can replicate the setup and the environment by using out the tools and the script. But we cannot replicate the exact behavior. But somehow, like up to some context, we can replicate the same.
No, but we can if we clone the underlying EC2, sorry, EBS volume,
Mhm.
uh, and then spin it. I mean, attach it to the new EC2 host, right? And let the users try to connect to that particular EC2 host. And to move this point, if the question is about the load, we should be able to replicate it, right?
Exactly. The question is about the load only. So actually, the load is actually causing the issue, right? So if we can actually work on, like if we can use out any distributive load testing tools. So on a context, like up to a context, we can do that, but not exactly again.
Okay. Okay. I understand that there may be a lot of things which are hard coded into that particular
Exactly.
machine.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, another question, Saurav, that is quite interesting. Say it's not the sheer number of users, but there could be one user, one naughty user, who was doing something different, like a port forwarding or something in a Kubernetes, some environment, right? They
Uh-huh.
were doing more some transferring something out of it using Bastion as the way, or it could be some other kind of even another incident which needs more attention because somebody was transferring out files. So how do we quickly gauge multiple scenarios like this?
So like if you'll ask me, you have
This could
actually
just be tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, we don't know. I mean, for all that we're investigating here, there
exactly.
could be bigger thing elsewhere.
So I mean, like if you'll ask me, if like out of those 30 users, if they have done something different and they were not supposed to specifically touch out the configuration, but intentionally or unintentionally they have actually changed out any configuration, that might be a scenario, but that should be reflecting in the logs, right? So if there is
Right.
something that has been actually changed by the user, that should reflect in the log. But if the system is actually changing on its own, then it is pretty hard to get that in the logs.
So you have also mentioned that all users are at the same location. So is there any issue with the local network? I mean,
So
while
like
connecting.
internet is totally working fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I would in fact second that question, what Mayank asked, because could the geography be different? Maybe one or two users were
Mhm.
connecting from a different geography and that kind of introduced some kind of lag. Is that what Mayank is saying? I'm not sure.
Like absolutely, like it can be if the users are from different geolocations, then the latency issue that we are having is kind of a predictable, you can say. But since all of the users that we are having as of now belong to the same geographical location, So actually, predicting about the latency that they are facing is kind of an, you can say, like hard to predict, right?
Sir, are any other easy to instances apart from this production host which are having a similar set of issues? Or is it just this one particular host which is having an issue?
This is the first time that we have encountered this kind of issues in that organization.
No,
So
no,
there
I'm
is, yeah,
saying you're suggesting the issue is from Bastion host to production host.
exactly.
Asking if there is any other host in that ecosystem where they are trying to connect from Bastion host to any other host, and are they having issues?
No, no, no. Like
Okay.
only issue is with this setup only.
So, because the reason why I'm asking is like if it's a geographical issue, then they should not even have an issue.
Yeah,
They would not
understand.
be able to even log into the Bastion issue, right?
Absolutely right.
So, are there any monitoring tool to observe the SSH? I personally not done this thing, but is there any tool we observe the SSH connections and then packet loss and latency
Well,
and all those?
mhm. Well, on the monitoring tools, you can exactly monitor the latency.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually create out a dashboard to monitor the latency.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to monitor the system specific configuration, I don't think so that apart from SSHing inside the system and getting into the logs, you do have another way of exploring the system
No, I mean
configuration.
like the identifying the pattern, why, like let's out of 30, how many users are dropping, right? So what's the error rate and what's the pattern, right? If that
Right.
helps to identify.
So, like on the dashboard side, you can have a dashboard like specifically for the latency and the connections that you are exactly establishing, and the 504 errors, 502
Right,
errors. You can have a dashboard for that.
right.
Yes, Saurav, 1 second. Suppose we also calculate the total success request and fail request. Correct. So on the basis, so how we capture the error? So we capture the error after seeing the dashboard graph and dashboard.
Mhm.
Right, na? So
Mhm.
how we find out the issue? So we need to do troubleshoot the issue after
So,
watching
like,
Grafana alerts, and then we will get the alerts from alert manager. Correct.
so, like if you'll ask me, 90, like almost 70 to 80% of the issues that I have been through, that were having the Grafana and the alert manager dashboards and everything. Background noise.
Someone mute their mic.
Yeah. So all of the production issues that I have been into on that, like almost if you'll ask me, 70 to 80% of the issues,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, they were having the Prometheus and the Grafana setup, and everything was looking clean on the dashboards. So like if you'll ask me, like it will actually look green 70 to 80% of the time, but the issue will still reside because the dashboard that we do actually prepare for the organization, that doesn't like specifically captures about the system health rather than the user health and all. As of now we make. So the idea is to make out the dashboards a lot more wider, like this latency dashboard that you can see. Like I believe most of the organization, they don't have their latency dashboard, or they don't have their like if you'll ask me, this kind of dashboard that actually shows out every detail of what is happening with the system and what is happening with the user too. So for 70 to 80% of the cases, you will not be able to find out any issues from the dashboard. Everything will look plain.
Okay. Yeah, and one more query. So in Kubernetes, so there is a future rate limiting. So
Mhm.
we will rate to limit to the users. So how the specific person how will do the request per second. So any rate limiting feature in our Linux applications?
Yeah, we do have.
Okay.
Hey Saurabh, I have one question. So in GCP, like we generally have connect to serial console option, right? So for example, if the SSH connection is not working, so is there a possibility we can troubleshoot that from by connecting to serial console as well?
Uh, I just like I guess I actually lost you in between. So like if you can actually come up again.
Yeah, I was saying that in GCP we had an option to connect to serial console, right, for the VMs. Because I
Mm-hmm.
faced this issue several times where some of the users was not able to SSH to the VM, and somehow they were able to connect to the serial console. So because I have tested this, but we are not able to run certain commands, or let's say for example, I want to restart the SSH daemon, right? So
Mm-hmm.
is there a possibility to connect to serial console and then we can troubleshoot the or fix the VM?
Like absolutely, you can just go ahead with the serial console and you can try to connect with that and try to resolve the same issue. Like obviously there is an like option to go ahead with that.
Okay, but I understand that. But like when we are connecting, it's just showing us the like the system logs, right? We are not able to run any commands, or like for example, I want to just restart the SSH daemon by systemctl command. So I don't think like we can do that from connecting to serial console.
We can still do that.
Okay,
And
like
like and that like in the production VM itself, we don't have any like specifically any public IP that has been assigned. So
mhm.
yeah,
But that would not help other 30 users, right? That can
exactly.
be used if there is a booting issue or something where you can use that. Sort of question: is there anything in the SSHD log? You look at the WAR messages,
Okay,
uh,
so like
as long as
specifically,
the logs. What did you see?
you are asking about the SSSD logs.
Yeah, and also there's the access logs as well,
So in
or
the
audit log.
so basically in the like if you will go inside those files called what name audit rules. So we do have this file of audit rules that actually contains everything that has happened with your system. That also include the SSSD logs, right? So we can see just the timeout issues there itself, but not exactly the description of why it has happened and all.
Is this timeout from client or from the server? Maybe we should first isolate that, then we can start focusing. Can be timeout from both sides, right? Someone is not speaking at that point of time, so he
Mhm.
assumes that he needs to tear off this connection. So
Mhm. Absolutely. So we can exactly isolate this thing from the bastion to understand that how exactly bastion is like sending a request to the client that we have, that is a production server. So we can have an isolation on both of the side, that if we can isolate and talk about the connection that it is establishing from the bastion to the prod, then we can get into details. We can do that.
Thought when we ran trace routes and TCP dumps from
Mhm.
prod host to bastion and bastion to prod, everything was working
Yeah,
fine. We did that.
exactly, everything was working fine at that moment.
Okay.
Okay, so we have got some questions in the chat also. So someone is saying that we can check out the authorized keys. Okay, so this authorized key that we have in the production under this SHS authorized key, that is also looking good to us, and yeah, that is exactly looking good to us. Murthy is saying authentication handshake, that will be good to explore. Absolutely, we will be diving deep inside that. That is a good point to make. Authentication and handshake, we'll be actually diving deep inside how exactly handshake is happening inside from the bastion to the prod, the acknowledgement, the key mismatch that can happen here. We will be diving deep inside this concept, and we will be exploring how exactly this bastion is actually connecting that prod. We'll be diving deep inside the authentication part too. So yeah, and I guess someone has also mentioned this SSH forwarding. So like if you guys have explored SSH forwarding in Linux, SSH port forwarding in Linux. I mean, this can be a root issue if you guys have enabled the SSH port forwarding in your VM itself. But in this specific scenario, we haven't done that. So
Yeah, but Saurabh, I was quickly thinking in my head. Port forwarding I've used in cases where it was just being used as a jump server or something,
Mhm.
or where the use case demanded it, but
Mhm.
not in the sense of a bastion or something in the cloud. So
Mhm.
my understanding, honestly, doesn't go full way into that. Like
Okay.
yeah,
So let me actually share out a link. You can go through that. That will actually explain you about the SSH port forwarding that we do in case of Bastion to the prod.
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. You can go through the details and let me know if you are having any more doubts on that. I'm just pasting the link in the chat. Okay. So I guess someone
Are
is
there any zero networks or something of that sort that are done by the security team to like only allow certain connections?
okay. So if that was being done, then they have already informed us that they have actually changed something.
Yeah, you haven't. I think security teams can be sneaky.
Yeah, yeah, right. So that was also not done.
Sort of, why can't we replicate the VM? I mean, I just wanted to know what are the challenges if we replicate a new VM itself and redirect all those users to that VM.
So that would actually take a lot of downtime to change all this, and since each of the minute is actually costing us a lot, so it's better not to replicate and try to fix out this first.
Oh, okay. But that will be working, right?
I mean, that can work. I mean, obviously that can exactly work, but that will take a lot of efforts to replicate the same setup
Yeah.
and downtime to migrate the whole users and all.
Okay.
Okay. Any more doubts? Like any more points that we have that you guys wanted to add here in terms of debugging?
Uh, I want to add about this idle timeout uh,
Mhm.
because there is an idle timeout which is set for each SSH connection when it tries to connect.
Mhm.
And it can be from both client side and also from server side. Maybe we need to look into that.
Mhm. So I
Yeah, this
guess.
is one.
Mhm. So we have already explored this thing while actually talking about the configuration rule file. There itself, we have talked about the allowed user, denied user, the maximum sessions, the minimum sessions, the timeouts, and everything. Everything looks
Okay.
good there.
Does the resource exhaustion could also cost, right? I mean, like
Okay. Mm-hmm.
on the productions, right? So
Good point.
there could be, let's say, the production has gone beyond the capacity of creating new connections, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that could be the intermittent, right? So let's say their capacity is 20, right? The moment 20 first connection came, right? So it has to either fail or till it's the previous session is freed up, right? And
So the
then
same thing just now I've explained that under this rules file you can find out the maximum sessions.
no,
Let's
I mean,
suppose
like the
example.
production is, yeah, not able to create these max sessions. That's the, like, for some reason I don't know the root cause, but
So now you are saying that even we have like written as 99 session at the same time. I mean the concurrent session as 99, but
yes,
still they are not able to create new sessions, right? So if
yes,
you will
yes.
see in this our problem statement, some of the users are able to connect. If it like it was completely not able to create out new sessions, then it was for all, right? But it is happening randomly with a few users only. That means it is able to create out the sessions.
But not all these sessions, right? So my confusion is, let's say 30 users trying, right? But
Hmm.
production due to some resource constraint able to create 20 sessions. Let's say it's a process or like whatever the file
So
limits or whatever,
that
right?
can happen. That can absolutely happen if the max session that has been set in this file is exactly 20. That can happen. But in that
Mhm.
file, it is actually set to triple nine, let's say. So that will
Mhm.
not happen.
Okay. All right. I was thinking like some other direction, like, even you configure the high sessions, right?
Mhm.
But let's say there is some resource exhaustion, maybe there are too many processes spins up due to other processes, right? And now this uh, new sessions can't be created, right? Beyond uh, some
So
20, even something
okay.
like that.
So basically, if you have like mentioned in this way that there are a lot of processes that is running inside the system, because of that our system is not able to create out the new sessions. But we have seen in the zombie processes, or we have actually run out the free and top command. There were not any extensive CPU or RAM extensive processes that is running, that is actually creating all the problems in our ecosystem. So that
Okay.
is the answer. Yeah.
How is the
Uh, yes,
configuration
Saurabh.
managed in this system? Saurabh?
Sometime in my last project, I have observed uh, when we do packet capturing, and sometimes in backend, TCP dump processes more than processes TCP dump. So because of these issues, so we are not able to do SSH. Suppose any VCX device. So these
Mhm.
types of issue. So we need to kill these processes, multiple TCP dump processes. Then we are
Mhm.
able to log in the SSH to the this device.
But the question is, we have seen we have also executed the packet loss command. We have seen the data, and there is no other processes that is running, not any background cron jobs that is also running. So there is absolutely not any background jobs, not any cron jobs, not any processes that is actually CPU extensive, RAM extensive, and not any specific processes that is actually uh, like getting this whole VM stuck in a like a specific scenario that we
Saurabh,
have.
how is the configuration management done? Like, is it using SaltStack, Ansible? What is it using?
So let's suppose like initially we have done it manually only.
Okay. And the sysadmin team or whatnot has not made any changes to the underlying sysctl from an IPv4 configuration or report forwarding. I mean, no changes have been done
No
from
changes.
their perspective.
Yeah.
And this IP which it's getting, is it DHCP? Is it losing it?
I'm sorry.
Networking, some kind of networking issue that if it's losing this IP and getting it back in some time, and then
So
it's tearing off.
we do have an elastic IP attached to that. So
Okay, then yeah, that's.
so like after every restart, the IP remains the same.
Is it a possibility that we run out of inodes on the production VM? Because if we run out of inodes on the VM, the storage might look clean in the logs,
Okay.
but it won't create any new files, and
That
that
is
can
a
indirectly impact the networks, VM's network.
I mean, yeah, that is a smart answer. I mean, inodes can be issue. So yeah, we'll be actually talking about the inodes, but that wasn't the root cause. Just to confront you guys, the inode wasn't the root cause, but it is smart to check that inodes. So let's suppose if there are too many files open in our production VMs, that can actually cause out the lag, right? And using out the commands like ulimit and all, and actually integrating the ulimit with inodes, we can actually close out that open files that is actually taking up like these things, and our process is actually stuck in that. But in this specific scenario, this is not the issue.
Sir, could you give us some more hints?
Yeah, like absolutely, like after this part we will be actually diving inside the solution itself. So like up until now, what we are doing, if you guys have observed this thing, we are just randomly hitting out the board that if something can work. I mean, like we have got multiple solutions. If this can be an issue, 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 multiple things, right? but no one had tried to actually debug it in a systematic way. I mean, everybody is just throwing the stones at the problem statement that it might get solved. So I can't see any structured debugging that we have.
Correct.
I
We're
mean,
trying luck so far, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you will try luck in the production outage, I mean, that will cost a lot to the organization that you are working for, right?
Mm.
So it's better not to try luck and to have a structured
Hey,
document.
can we do pairing like as a team? Like so can you scroll up where you say the how to approach the problem, right? First the isolation and then uh,
Yeah.
we will do along with you, or you want us to think in that direction?
So let me just explain out the terms and all, and let me actually give you a structured way to think, and then you can deep
Okay.
dive into that, and then you can think along with the team and try to explore multiple concepts that we have in
Mhm.
Linux and networking.
Okay.
So instead of this just throwing out random answers, in like in the production outage, we don't throw the random answers. We exactly use structured debugging. And if you are following out the structured debugging, I mean, absolutely, you can fix the production issue in no time. Okay, so no one has actually tried to isolate the issue and then try to fix it. I mean, there are a lot of factors that has been involved in the production outage. And since this is our first war room drill, I mean, this was expected. But from the next time, we'll try to follow a specific approach, okay, a specific debugging approach, and from that thing, we'll try to debug this all the production issues that we will face in the upcoming session. And if you'll see using that specific framework only, you will be able to find out the issues a lot more faster instead of just randomly going out to the random solutions. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is true, right? Because we were trying to go with whatever was presented to us from the logs
Mhm.
and not. I mean, we went through all the use cases that could have gone wrong,
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. Like
and no changes have been made.
mhm.
We tried to check from the logs. We tried to see if there were any changes that were pushed by the management. I mean, sorry, the sysadmin team or whatnot. But you mentioned there were no changes have been done. So I'm trying to understand how more structured we can go from what you're suggesting.
Exactly. We will be actually diving deep inside that how structure we need to think. So like as of now,
Also,
what? Yeah.
one more thing, Saurabh. Like there are like when we face these situations, right? There are factors which influence our mind, right? Like as I mentioned before, right? Okay, this was working before. Now suddenly, what is working, right? And it kind of reduce the sometimes the our capacity to think in the right directions, right? So there are external influencing factors. So how to isolate them as well?
Like external factors like what?
External means like it was working. Let's say in our scenario, it is working for 22 people. Let's say, and for 8, it's not working, right? So
Mhm.
suddenly, how the mind starts thinking is okay. If it is working for things, then okay, the network is fine, right? Probably. So there is
Mhm.
no port issue, right? So it's probably
Mhm.
listening on 22 port fine, right? So we kind of reach to a point where we start thinking that okay, everything is correct, and we stopped thinking that okay, the problem could work sometimes and could not work for few users, right? So
Mhm.
we ourselves keep thinking that things are fine. I mean, like because of these things.
Absolutely.
And to that, and adding to that, there could also be a bug in the system. We have all spent enough time in the industry where there could be a bug where you spend hours, and ultimately it could be like a bug in the underlying OS. Let's say.
It can be, yeah, it can be. Like I've been into like actually I've been into such problems where the problem was actually associated with the hardware, not with the software. So yeah, it can be.
There are also problems where the cloud providers do some kind of changes and they don't intimate.
Yeah,
So we
absolutely.
had also similarly with AWS, they did some change which they didn't agree until 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks they come back. Yeah, we have done this change on the load balancer.
Hmm.
Absolutely, that can happen. Yeah, I mean, like I've been into that scenario too, so yeah, I can correlate it. Okay, so like anyone wants to add anything before jumping into how exactly the system works? So, like the idea in a production outage is not to see a smaller picture of what is happening, but to see a larger context of why it is happening. Okay. Now, like as of now, we are just trying to see a smaller picture that the Bastion is not able to connect with the production system, right? That is a smaller picture. Now we have to talk about the larger picture that we have. So we will be jumping into into the larger picture, and we will be actually jumping into a mental framework on how exactly to approach this kind of problem statement, which cannot be fixed by some common fixes. So all the solutions that we have tried as of now, okay, that can actually work for 99% of the production outage. Like absolutely, you guys are also aware about that. That obviously, like if we are actually trying out this all solutions and all, so this can easily work for 99% of the cases. But there is 1% of the cases that is not in the control of our hands or the system hands, and we are just trying out the solutions and nothing is working out, and everything is everything seems to be a little difficult at that time. So this is one of that scenarios which is which exactly comes in under 1%. So this is not about the 99%. If that was the case of the 99%, then that can easily be solved by all the solutions that you guys have pitched. So that is something that lies under that 1% category. And yeah, so the idea is to give you an idea of how exactly to handle that 1% of the cases, not to handle that 99% of the cases. Okay. Any doubts or anything, like if anyone wants to add anything here? Okay, so we are concluding the problem statement from here, and let's take at least a 5 minutes break. Just give me also 5 minutes, and then after that 5 minutes, we'll be actually talking about the approach, the solution statement in a lot detail. Sounds good to everyone? Okay,
Yeah.
let's get into yeah. Okay, nice is asking some questions. Where if we were to check logs, what logs specifically, the commands and part. Yeah, yeah. Like after this, like after this specific session itself, I will be actually providing you the RCA that will consist of all the part, the command, everything that needs to be checked. So that will be included in the RCA. So yeah. So yeah, see you in just 5 minutes. Okay. So I believe everyone is back, so we can restart this. Just let me know if everyone is back. Okay.
Uh,
Sharing the.
so we discussed the route connectivity. Yeah, route connectivity is okay between two servers.
Mhm.
Yeah, is it fine? Route connectivity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So we are good to go. Okay. I guess Soba is asking in the chat. Do we know the list of users who can connect? The ones who cannot. If so, is it always the same list of users who cannot connect? Or does it pick users randomly? So at the start of the session, I mentioned that this is exactly happening randomly with the different users. This is not happening with the same users. If it is happening if it was happening with the same users, then we could have easily find out the uh, main issue behind this production outage. But since it is happening with different users intermittently, so that's why it's a bit difficult to find out as of now. So like as of now, we have discussed about all these things. So as I have mentioned, like all those solutions that we have got, that was pretty amazing. And if that specific problem statement was actually in 99 percent of the cases, then that solutions or the approaches that you guys have provided, that would absolutely work. But since it is something that is actually dropping in that 1%, so it is sometimes hard to find this kind of a direct approaches which can solve out this kind of production outage. So let's now try to see that how exactly to solve out this kind of issues that cannot be solved by those all solution that we have actually placed in the call. So before into jumping inside the problem statement and analysis, let's now talk about how exactly SSH between the bastion to prod. Okay. Now let's talk about that in detail. Okay. So the first step would be, just give me one second. Yeah. So on the bastion, the user will actually run this kind of command. Let's suppose SSH anuj at the rate prod server, right? And then it will get connected with the prod server. So here, what exactly is happening under the hood? If you will see, we are now Bastion is actually acting as an SSH client here, right? So now Bastion is acting as an SSH client, and the Bastion private IP is the source IP that we have. So let's suppose the source IP that we have is 10.20.0.5. Okay, so that is a Bastion, a private IP, which is acting as a source IP. Now the source port, what it can have. So like usually on the source side, and like a port is actually allocated by the OS that actually ranges on a different number. So let's suppose for this bastion we do have a port of 34567. That is an empirical port. Make sense? That is a source port that we have. And from this, we are actually trying to SSH inside the production VM that we have. And the destination IP, that is the production IP that we have, is destination IP is, let's suppose, 10.20.1.9. Okay. Now that is the destination IP, and the destination port that we have is the port number 22. Let's suppose for an example. So exactly the tuple would actually look like this. That what was this? 10.20.0.5 3 4 5 6 7. It will get into the production as 10.20.1.9. So that's how an engineer will actually run an SSH command on the bastion, and below that that's how it will exactly start the process, right? And after hitting out this, a TCP three-way handshake will happen. Now it will actually trigger a handshake. TCP three-way handshake. Let me change out the color. Yeah. So now, if you'll see here, Bastion is sending us. Bastion is exactly sending a sync. Sends sync from the port number 34567. Okay, and the prod kernel that we have sees it, and if it is not being dropped by the firewall, okay, then it actually responds with the acknowledgement that we have. That is this acknowledgement, right? That is from the prod that we have. Okay, and again the Bastion replies with the acknowledgement. Bastion replies with the acknowledgement. And after that, the TCP socket is being established. So at this point, the operating system that we have and the network stack that we have, they agree on a mutual point that they can talk, and that's how it will establish exactly a communication, right? Now let's talk about the details of SSH protocol. SSH protocol handshake. Now, what will happen here? First, Bastion will send out. Bastion will send out this SSH banner. Okay, and the production will actually respond with its own banner, and then they will start negotiating based on the ciphers that we have, based on the max that we have, based on the key algorithm that we have. So based on all this, they will start negotiating if to accept the connection or to reject the connection. And then also we do have a host key verification that you can find in Linux. Okay, so there itself the Bastion will actually check out the known host. Bastion checks on the known host. So now what is happening for the SSH handshake protocol? The Bastion is actually sending out a banner. The production SSHD that we have is actually responding with its own banner, and then they start negotiate based on the ciphers that is involved in the communication, the max, the key algorithm, and then if everything works, then the session will establish. If the cipher or there is any key mismatch, then the session will abort from here. So if there is any cipher mismatch that is involved in the communication, or if there is any key mismatch, then the session will abort from here. Make sense? Now, like after this process on IP and all, we have seen the TCP three-way handshake, and then the SSH protocol handshake. And I guess someone in the chat has actually already commented that authentication and all. So now actually comes part of this authentication phase. Now we talked about authentication in detail. Okay. So this authentication is actually depends on the on the configuration that we had made. Okay, so let me write out all the points that we are going to talk first. So after authentication, we can actually talk about the PAM setup, the PAM session setup that we have in Linux. Okay, then after that, we will be talking about how exactly a shell is created after a user is successfully checked in with the authentication and authorization. How exactly shell is being created, and yeah, that is the whole process. If you are entering the password, like here, if you'll see, Anuj is actually trying to hit this command, and using that command, the Bastion, which is the SSH client as of now, that is having a source IP of this, that has an empirical port of this, and it is actually has a destination IP of the prod VM and the destination prod. Now it is trying to make out a tuple which will actually creating out the connection. Now, after hitting out this command, this specific thing will go, then it will perform out a TCP three-way handshake where the Bastion using the empirical port will ask out, like it will ask out for a sync with the prod one, and the prod will actually reply with the sync acknowledgement, and the Bastion will again reply with the acknowledgement. After this, the TCP socket will actually establish for the communication. After that, the SSH protocol starts. That means the Bastion SSHD that we have, that will first send out the SSHD banner that we have, that actually includes the OpenSSL configurations and all. So the Bastion uh, like the Bastion SSHD configuration that we have, it will first share out its banner. Then the production SSHD that we have, it will share it a banner, and then based on the negotiation, it will decide either to establish out the connection or the not. If the cipher is actually totally matched, if the keys are totally matched, then it will establish the connection. And if it has if it is in the known host, then it will establish the connection. If that is not included there, then it will abort the overall connection of SSH. So after that, if that part is actually if that part is successful, then it jumps into the authentication phase. Now who is actually trying to authenticate? Like up until now, everything was happening with the system. Now it will happen with the user and the system. Okay, so now we do have an authentication phase. Here specifically, like it will authenticate the user that we are having, and the user that we are having here is the Anush, and he's actually trying to access out the prod VM. Make sense, you know?
Yep.
Okay, now let's get into this authentication phase detail. Now, how exactly this will happen, and what are the different things that this specific layer will be having? Okay, I will try to get into details. Okay, so like if this will sound new to you, so you can go through the documentation after this session itself. Okay, so on this authentication phase, it will first start with the, let me change of color. So on this authentication phase, it will first start with the public key authentication, public key auth. That means the bastion will actually forward the private key signature to the prod SSD that will validate against the public key that has been saved inside the SSH and the authorized key file. That means here what is happening, the bastion that we have will actually try to forward the private key signature that we have stored in the bastion. It will share the private key signature, okay, and the prod SSD that we have, it will validate the same against the configuration that is been stored in this SSH authorized key. This will actually cross check if that both is same or not. If that is same, that means the authentication will happen. Then it will go to the next step. It will, even after that, it will actually check out the OS login. Now on this OS login part, most of the like if we'll create the VM by default, that means the OS login has been enabled. Okay. So after actually checking out if the OS login has been enabled or not, it will actually call out the SHHD, will call the PAM. Okay. Now here PAM will try to check that the user is having what kind of accesses, or the user is denied, or if a user is allowed, then at what time, and all the configuration related to the specific user. The PAM will try to check after the after the OS login that has been enabled. Then the SSD will actually call the PAM to check all the details, and then after checking out in the PAM configuration, it will go into the triple SD. Okay, and then from the triple SD, it will go into the Google APIs if we are using Google as a cloud provider, or if we are using AWS, then obviously like AWS APIs, to validate that the user has the SSH rights or not. If the user is having the SSH rights, in this way the flow will happen for the authentication. First of all, it will try to check in the uh, like authorized key, and the bastion will actually make out a connection from the private key signature. The prod SSD will actually cross verify. Then after that, it will check that the OS login has been enabled or not. If it is enabled, then our SSD at the prod will actually try to check out the PAM configuration that we have. Then after after checking on that, it will go to the SSD, and then the respected cloud APIs to validate if the user has the SSH permissions or not. After this, it will actually conclude that the user is authorized to get inside the VM or not. After this specific process, this will also trigger a set of things here. Now, the first thing is reverse DNS lookup. So if in the SSHD configuration, if we have enabled the use DNS as yes, then our SSHD will try to resolve the bastion IP back to the host name. Okay, and then there is another concept of GSS API. and the cargoes that we have. Okay, so if that is been enabled, then there is a slight, you can say, a possibility of latency from here only. So if the GSS API has been enabled and the cargoes has been enabled, then we could like have an idea that this could introduce some of the latency in the system. Now, what is this GSS API and the cargoes? Let's talk about this in detail. Okay, let's first talk about the GCS API. So this stands for the generic security services in the API. So generic security services in the application program interface. Okay, so it is basically, you can say, a standard API that will actually it is integrated with the SSD only. So it is a like it is a kind of an API that will actually use out the external authentication system without knowing their internal working. That means it will not only depend on your password to check out the authentication, it will go beyond that and it will check that. Okay, so like if you see in the enterprise like setup and all, by default it has been actually backed by a term called Kerberos. Okay, so that is a network authentication protocol that we use in the networking a lot to verify if the request that we have is authenticated properly or not. So this GSS API is actually backed by the Carbos, which is exactly a network authentication protocol that uses the ticket issued by the KDC, that exactly a key distribution, what is this, a key distribution center. Yeah, so that will this thing that we have is basically a network authentication protocol that will use out the tickets that has been issued by this KDC to actually check if the identity is secure without even sending out the password over the wire. So if we are not looking to share the password over the wire, the same thing that we are actually doing as of now, like is to handling out the security at the by the files itself. So same thing for there itself, the carbos will actually back like us up there to actually check if the identity that is actually making out the connection is a secured identity without even sending out the original password over the communication channel. So this exactly is happened with the help of the KDC that we have, and that's how the GCS API that has been backed by the Carvos actually checked out the authentication part. And if you have enabled this GSS API Carbos in your SSH, that means in the SSH HD configuration, generally we enable this. Okay, so if that GSS API authentication is marked as yes, then SSH doesn't use key or the password. It also tries to actually negotiate the authentication using the Carbos KDC that we have understood. So now let's talk like I've actually mentioned this statement that if that has been enabled at yes, then a latency will introduce. Now let's talk why I'm like stating like this. Now if you see during the SSH process that we have, during the SSH login process that we have, okay, after the TCP that we have seen, after the TCP three-way handshake, after the SSH protocol handshake, and after the cipher negotiation that we have seen, okay, then after all this, SSH D that we have, that will check the authentication methods are allowed or not. That authentication methods include the public key that we have already seen, okay, the passwords if that has been enabled, the GSS API that we have seen. So if this has been enabled as yes, then the server will attempt a GSS API negotiation. The Bastion will actually send a GSS API initiation request to the prod. Now here, let's talk about the communication bastion to prod. Now, if that has been enabled as yes, then the bastion that is acting as our client, that will send out a GSS API initiation request to the prod. Okay, and the prod server that we have, the prod server, that will actually okay, that will actually check the Kerberos KDC keys against that, against the GSS API that is actually creating out the request from the Bastion server. The prod server will actually check out the KDC that is been backed by the Kerberos to validate the request. And if we are having any KDC's issue in that, that is very common. Okay, so if we are having KDC issues here, that will stuck. But if that has been verified, the SSSD accepts the login. Now, let's talk about the latency part. Where does latency will happen? Okay. Now, let's suppose your environment, in your environment, you have enabled this as yes, and your environment isn't actually using the Kerberos, but the GCP API authentication is actually enabled by default. Okay. So now the SSHD that we have will actually try this all things first. It will wait for the client to respond or to attempt for any timeout. So if you will see in our case, a timeout is happening. Okay, then like after actually getting a response from the client, if that is not getting any response, then it will go for a reattempt. Before getting into a timeout, it will try to reattempt, and after the timeout configuration that we have, it will be timing out. Okay, so that is the first thing. And then if the DNS reverse lookups that we have explained, yeah, this thing, if this is also enabled as yes, then the SSHD will try to resolve the client host name. It will do a PTR lookup, then it will use out the name for the mapping of the Kerberos for the prod system that we have. And if the DNS that we have is slow, or it is a kind of flapping, you can say, then this will add up like you can say this will exactly add up some time or the seconds to every login that is happening in your system. So if you'll see, all this thing actually comes to the this DNS part. Okay, so if your DNS is flappy or it is slow, it will add up the time to your logging of each user, because of backing of this Kerberos that is backed by the KDC and all. Okay, so as a result, the user will see a long pause before the password has been in, like after the password has been entered and before the key acceptance, it will see a long pause, and there itself they will identify it as an that my terminal will start lagging or the timeout is happening and all and all. This can be a scenario. I'm not saying this is the scenario. I'm saying this can be a possibility that we had the same case. Okay. Now, if you that's how the that's how the process of authentication will actually work. So uh, just to exactly revise the whole scenario, let's get yeah. So you can see now the authentication is starting with the public key auth that we are having. That is actually from the Bastion, is like it is exactly sending out the private key a signature to the prod, and the prod SSHD is actually validating the same against the file that has been stored under the root SSH and the authorized keys. From there, it will validate if the signature is matching or not. If not, it will abort. If yes, then it will make out the connection. Then it will go to the another part. If that OS login is been enabled, the SSHD will actually call out the PAM modules. The PAM will see out the like specific to the user or the roles or the groups that has been assigned to that. And accordingly, it will actually go to the SSS or triple SD, and then after that, it will go to the APIs of the respected cloud to check if the user has the SSH rights or not. If all this has been done, then it will actually, if you have enabled the reverse DNS lookup in your SSHD configuration file. So now SSHD will try to resolve the bastion IP back to the host name. Okay, and if that has been done, it will go into the GCS API that is backed by the Kerberos. Then it will again visit that reverse DNS lookup, and that if the DNS is flappy, that will introduce a kind of a latency to the system. Now, I hope this authentication part is pretty clear to you.
But the GS API, Kerberos, and DNS, they're all global services, right? When
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
global, a given environment,
yeah,
they are all common to everything. But
yeah.
if this is affecting a single machine, I'm just trying to understand, like, we
So, like,
should be quick to fix that. I mean, quick to identify.
so uh, let me actually give you that hint. So, like, as of now, we are actually trying to understand that what exactly happens between the bastion and the server ideally, not specifically to this specific scenario.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so after this authentication part, now let's talk about the PAM session setup that we have. Okay, so on this PAM session setup, this will exactly start after the authentication that has been succeed. If the authentication has been succeed, the PAM modules will run, and it will exactly check out the groups and the roles that the user has been assigned with. It will also actually apply the login restrictions if that has been applied to a role or to a group. It will actually go to the etc. I guess into the security we do have a file name. What is file name? I guess the file name is security.config. Okay. So there itself, it stores all the PAM modules. There itself, it will check if the user has been allowed, denied, or if there is any specific restriction that has been applied to a specific user or not. So there itself, it will actually try to check out the PAM restriction and all and all. And at last, if the PAM or the SSD cache is been expired, so this can be a scenario that our PAM cache or the SSD cache is been expired. Then some of the user will face this denied issue until this cache will refresh. Make sense?
But usually SSD crash.
Can you explain that part again, please?
Sure. So let me explain you that part. Okay. So after the authentication part, like after a successful authentication, the PAM module will run and it will actually check out all the groups and the roles. It will apply any restriction that has been applied to a specific user, to a role or a group. And then based on that, like it will set up a PAM session like on the user itself. And if the PAM cache that we store is expired, then it will take some time to refresh that cache, right? And like in that moment, some of the user can face out this denied issue. So this is a generic statement, not specific to the problem statement that we have. That can happen. I hope this makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So after a successful after a successful PAM session, then after all this, a shell will be created. Now let's try to get into that detail, that how exactly a shell will created. Okay. Now after the authentication, after the authentication and the PAM setup, if everything has been succeed, then like a session will be actually created like as in cell. Okay. Now let's try to get into detail what kind of sessions and all will be created. Okay. So it will only created after the authentication of the public key, after the authentication of the OS login, the GS API. Okay. After all this, the the SSHD will actually fork a child process. The main process that we have from the parent will actually continue But so let's this is the parent cell and this is the child cell. Okay. So this is the main SSHD. So after all this authentication, okay, the main SSHD that we have will actually continue to listen for the new connection that it will make, and it will create out a child SSHD process. Okay, and this child SSHD process is basically created specifically for the login user. In our case, Anuj can see a child SSHD process. Now, if you will, like after just this process itself, if you will try to grep the SSHD command by using the process ef grep SSHD, then you will see a root and a user. Okay, that root is actually the main you can say a parent body, and this user is you, who is having a child SSHD a process that has actually spawn up a cell. Okay, so after that part only, after this all part that we have discussed, okay, the SSHD will actually launch the default user cell that is been stored like in the etc, the password. Okay, so if you have stored like if the Anuj is actually mapped to if Anuj is actually mapped to use out the bash shell, then it will spin up a bash shell for Anuj. If the Anuj is supposed to use the Z shell, so it will spin up a Z shell. It depends on the SSL and all and all. So this all a configuration of what type of cell the user will be having lies on this etc password. Okay, there itself you can have this a configuration, and based on that configuration, a session will be created for that specifically logged in user that you can say. Okay, then after this we under this etc profile, under this etc profile file, we do have the profile scripts that actually have all the details, and also every time you do this command, that actually refreshes your profile only, that is related to this. So that will actually refresh your profile, and at last Anush can see this thing, then Anush is being logged into the prod system and he can use out the commands and all. After this only, the prompt will be visible to Anuj and the channel will be established. At this moment of time, you can say that you are correctly logged in inside the system, and every command you type is will actually send out the encrypted packet. So let's suppose for an example, Anuj is actually typing ls command. Okay, so now what will happen? It will actually it will like the command will actually send out the encrypted packet over the TCP session that we have. Okay, this will be having some encrypted packet that will be over the TCP session, and it will then share it to the SSHD that will be executed by the shell that you are using, and obviously output will also be encrypted in this way, and that will again send back to the bastion. So now Anuj is exactly executing this command, and then an encrypted packets over the TCP sessions will be started. That will be actually sent to the SSHD. The SSHD will be actually executing by the cell of your choice. It will revert output that will be encrypted, and that will be sent back to the bastion from where Anuj has started this command thing. So that's how the communication will happen, and that's what all the things will be involved here, like in terms of connecting from the bastion to the production server that we have. So I hope everything makes sense of and all. So Yeah. So we have talked about all of these methods that will be involved in this. So yeah, I hope like everyone is pretty clear on the way we actually connect from a bastion to the production host.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Okay, now we can since we are having this idea, now we can actually talk about how to approach and all and all.
Saurabh, before that, I'm having one question here. So the use case that you have explained just for the one user. So I just wanted to know if there are multiple users where try to log in. So first one is how the authorization token has been passed. So it is for a single authorization token, or every user had the different authorization token, or the same at the KTC level. So key distributed, the key was that was defined, that is a single key that has been exchanged for all user, or there could be a different key generated for each and every user.
So basically, like uh, the overall process that we have explained, all this will be replicated for the each of the connection that you will establish. So for each new connection, the same whole process will be repeated.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Any more doubts?
So does it mean that we'll have a separate shell per user? Per user, one parent and one child process per user. Is that correct?
Exactly. Okay. Cool. So now we can actually talk about how exactly we need to approach out the problem segment in order to solve this out. Okay. So now let's talk about this. Just give me 2 minutes. I will be back in 2 minutes. Okay. So I hope I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's get back to this. So now let's try to debug this in a certain scenario. Okay. So now let's talk about how exactly a system works. Okay. So let's suppose like I do have a virtual machine. Okay, that is actually deployed in any of the cloud provider. That is a virtual machine. Okay. So if you'll see, there are multiple actually components that has been involved at the like at the VM level. Or let's suppose if you do have a physical machine also. Yeah. So now let's talk about all the things that is involved in a physical machine to get work. Okay, or a virtual machine to get it work. Okay, so if you'll see, that actually starts with a physical parts that you have. So if you do have a physical machine, that will be having first a physical layer that will include the physical CPU, the physical RAM, the NICs, the ARPs, and all those, right? So that will be a physical layer. That is the first and the main important part. If you are looking to create out a physical machine, that will be having some physical part, right? And then after that, we will be having a operating system over that. Okay, that will be having any distribution of Linux. Let's suppose in our case we are having Ubuntu. You can have Windows, you can have different operating system. So after this physical layer, we do have an operating system. So let's suppose the laptop that I have in like in front of me. Okay, so this is having a physical part first, that is having a keyboard, a mouse, CPU, RAM, that I can that exactly I can touch it physically, right? And then over that, we do have an operating system on which everything runs. So this operating system can be Linux, Windows, or different operating system, right? And after that, we have the runtime environment that has that. Uh, so let's suppose I like I'm looking to run out a Node application or a Python application. So I need to install out the Python environment in order to run a Python application, right? So that means a runtime needs to be there, right? And after that runtime, we need to have an application environment. That means after the runtime that we have, let's suppose the Python or the Node, if we have installed out the Python and the Node, and if we will try to run out our application over that, that will obviously like start, right? So it will be having an application just after that. And the application will actually communicate to the internal services or communicate to the external users and all. So that will be having a network part, right? And after that, it will be having like it will be having a storage that will store the system configuration and the application configuration. So let's suppose the application data and the system data is been stored in a system. So if you are using Windows, it could be C drive. If you are using Mac, it could be users and all and all. So we'll be having a data layer to store all the configuration related to that. Make sense? And at last, to secure all this communication, there would be a security layer. So basically, the security layer is integrated at each of the layer. But just to have an idea of how exactly security works, we'll be having an extra security layer that will act as an firewall or anything that will prevent all the malicious activities not to interact with the system. So if you'll see, like if I am looking to design out a physical system, like it should be having the physical components that we have exactly talked about. Then we have talked about it should be having an operating system. Then we have talked about it should be having a runtime, and then it should be having an application, okay, at least to run. And that application needs to be communicated to the internal, like internal and to the external users. That means it needs to have an networking system embedded. Then all the system related and the application related data will stay on a data layer, and then at last a security layer. So do you think that to create out a physical or a virtual system, we will be needing that details of each of the layer that I mentioned?
So can you repeat the question, sir?
Yeah, like I was just asking, if we have to create out a virtual system or a physical system or any system, I believe that all things we require to create out a physical or a virtual system.
Yes. Yes.
So, do you think that beyond all those seven points that I have actually mentioned here, is there any like any specific point that has been left so far?
Looks good.
Anyone who wants to add here?
The application itself, the laptop, might be connecting via a middleware, for example. I think you included that in the runtime environment, which is actually the
Yeah,
node or express, isn't it? The
yeah,
middleware.
yeah. Right.
That's fine. Yeah.
So, basically, to create out a virtual system or a physical system, you will be needing this seven different layers, right? And using this seven different layers itself, you can create a physical or a virtual system in the cloud or in the on-prem or anywhere. That is all the seven components that is required to create out a machine. Absolutely right.
Yes.
Okay. So, like, I believe you have seen this structure somewhere in your like in your uh, day-to-day
So
life. Mhm. Okay.
similar to OSI layer, right? Kind of.
Absolutely, the OSI layer. So now, if you will analyze this part, okay. So each and every system works on this seven-layer part, and that is somehow related to this OSI layer that we have studied. So that actually starts from the physical layer. Then there is a data link layer. Then like all the layers are there, like the transport layer, session layer, and everything. But this is the mental model that we do have to prepare in order to troubleshoot any production system that will be actually inside this seven layers only. So if there is any issue that you are facing as a production issue, what do you think? That should be in those layers only. So do you think that it can be outside of these seven layers that we have discussed?
Um, there could be some external factors, right? I'm
No,
like the external.
we are exactly talking specific to system only, not
Okay.
external factors and all. So, do you think that there can be an issue related to the system that should be outside of these seven different layers that has been mentioned here?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Anyone wants to add? Okay. So I believe like all the system issues that you will be facing or all the production outage that you will be facing, you can solve it using the seven layer approach. That is the OSI layer approach. Now let's try to actually filter this out in a lot more detail. Okay. Now the OSI layer is having seven different layers, and the layers that I have mentioned here is somehow connected but not exactly connected, and we'll actually try to summarize that. So like if we'll see like in the problem statement that we have talked about solutions and all, the idea is it to isolate each of the each of the thing that we are looking to sort. So let's suppose we have actually talked about that. Yeah, here we have actually talked about the network, which will exactly comes to the networking part. Here we have actually talked about the result.config, which will actually comes in the data layer part, because the system specific data will be stored in the data layer only. Okay, and if you will see the ports, that will also come into the data layer part. If you will see this all configuration, this all setting of the timers on all this will also come into the data layer. The logs and everything will be specific to the OS layer. So everything we can categorize this in 7 different layers that we have mentioned. Now this is the mental model which actually refers out the OSI layer approach. But the OSI layer approach that we have is quite different that we have seen, that has the data link layer, that has session layer, presentation layer, different layers, right? Now let's actually try to understand that why and how exactly. So let's suppose if I'm actually creating out a OSI layer table here that will include the layer 1 as in the physical layer, the layer 2 as in the data link layer, the layer 3 as in the network layer, and the layer 4 is what? Transport layer. And the layer 5 is session layer. The layer 6 is presentation layer. And the layer 7 is application layer. Okay. Now let's try to map this all layers into the layers that we have. Okay. So like if you will see the physical layer that we have, that will include, like ideally that will include the electricity, the raw media, the optics, blah blah blah, right? But in our VM part, it will include what? It will include the CPU. Like in the physical part, it includes the NIC drivers, the hypervisor scheduling, the CPU and RAM. But you cannot debug cables in GCP, right? So you do only have to debug the resource ceilings that we have. That is the empirical ports. That is the file disruptor. I don't think so that anyone has mentioned this FD limits issue there. So that actually comes under this physical layer only. So what we can explore here, we can explore the ports, FDS, that is the file descriptor limits, the run queue. Okay. Now all this exactly can be mapped inside the physical layer. Now since we are in the like in a cloud, so we just cannot debug the cables of a GCP, right? So we do have to debug only those kind of things that is actually considered in the physical layer, that involves the empirical ports, FDs, run queues, and a lot of things are there. Okay. Now let's talk about this data layer. So in GCP, you ideally do not touch out the ARP frames, okay, the MAC, the Ethernet, like anything like that. Okay. So on data layer, in the traditional OSI layer, in data layer, we are having the ARP, the switching, the Ethernet, the MAC, and all and all. But in GCP, you just cannot touch the ARP frames. That GCP will like abstract all it. So the problems at L2 here will be actually included in only in the physical layer itself. So all the things that we see in GCP, so we can basically combine the physical and the data layer into the physical layer itself. Make sense? Make sense? Okay. So now, like if you see the network layer that we have, that includes the IP routing, that includes the addressing and all. Okay. So we do have our own network layer, so that can be easily embedded into that. But this transport layer that we are having, that includes the TCP, UDP, the ports, and the contract and everything. That is again inside the network layer that we can see. Okay. Now let's talk about the session layer that we have. This session layer is actually responsible for establishing out the sessions. Now all the SSH handshake, the like all this kind of thing will actually store in the SSHD configuration, right? So that is somehow related to the OS thing. So all this session related thing will be stored in the SSHD, right? So we can exactly consider that as an OS part. Can we?
Yeah.
Now at the presentation layer that we do have encryption, decryption, compression, format, and all and all. Now here, what we see is SSH, we are having the ciphers, uh, we are having the cipher negotiation, the KDC negotiation, everything under the OS daemon only. So that can also be involved in the OS part, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And at last, we do have this application layer that handles all the system configuration and the user app data. Okay, so that can, if you will see, I'm sorry. So, like in our case, the SSSD is the application providing the SSH, right? So the authorized key, the PAM, the SS, like the cache and all the profile scripts, everything stores in the data layer state that we have, right? So ideally, in the OSI layer approach, if you'll go to 7 different approach, that will be actually combined as an physical layer, OS layer, network layer, data layer, application layer. Okay. Now, like at last, the security layer.
So this here merge both the models, right, into a consolidated.
Yeah, exactly. And you can exclude the application layer itself, because this is not something that we do have to take care of. The developers will take care of. And in this case, also the application is something that is working fine, so we can exclude that.
But we need to consider it, right, when identifying the problem, right? I'm like,
Yes,
we cannot straight away say that it's
absolutely.
not an application problem.
Okay. So let's include that also. Okay.
Okay.
I got it. Okay.
Saurav, ARP broadcasting, I observed this issue. ARP broadcasting also prevent the SSH login.
Yeah.
So, could you please explain this scenario also?
Yeah, like absolutely, that can also be the case. But since we are handling it on the cloud provider, this cannot be the case, right? And if you are actually looking to get inside the like ARP details, I can actually send out a blog that will actually help you to understand that how like SSSD like helps you like in terms of ARP framing and all. So I can share you that blog. Okay. So now, like if you'll see, we have actually consolidated six different layers. So this is a kind of an you can say a framework that will apply to most of the production outages that you see. If that is related to a system, the issues can be easily like find is like in any of the layers. So if the issue is actually related to the CNI in Kubernetes, that will be related to our network layer, right? So the idea is to first isolate which layer is having the issue. So let's suppose here itself, we will actually try to go through each of the layer configuration we will actually try to go through. So we'll start with the physical layer and we'll try to see so what all elements that we can debug it physically. So on on the physical layer that we have, we'll start our debugging part from the physical layer. We'll go through each of the configuration that can be easily configured while creating out a VM on any of the cloud providers. We'll go through each of the configuration. Then we will be exactly going through the OS layer. That so I guess Soham is trying to say something. Yeah, we have eliminated that since we are looking to have a consolidated way of debugging. So that is exactly handled by the application itself. So yeah. So so basically to start the debugging part, we will go through each of the configuration on each of the layer. We'll start from the physical layer. Whatever configuration that a physical layer can have in terms of cloud, we'll go through each of the configuration. If the issue is not found on that layer, then we'll go through the OS layer approach. We'll go inside the operating system. We'll try to see all of the configuration that we can make in the cloud provider, and we'll try to see if the issue is residing in this layer. Then we'll jump into the network layer, and we'll try to see each of the configuration that we have made. And similarly, we will be getting inside each of the layer line by line. So do you think that after exactly covering out this 6 different layers, we can find out the solution in any of the layer? Do you think that?
We would be in better position, that's for sure.
Mhm. Anyone else wanted to add anything?
Just one kind of question, as you gave me a lot of mental map, right? Mental model. Say, for example, if we go by cloud front, right? Sometimes issues can be because of lot of can be resolved through using and putting these kind of services to a more effective use, or those can be part of a solution. Though again, that would be more like a design kind of choice rather than a BAU kind of thing. But still, while debugging, if I want to kind of incorporate that into this model, where would that fit into the existing models that we have discussed? So I'm still thinking through. So I was just relaying my question loud so that somebody could help me.
Okay, understand. So like if you'll see how exactly we have to approach for a production outage, as we have done, we do have to first try to fix that production outage using uh, using the common answers that we have got from you. So we will actually try to fix out a production outage using some common answers or the scenarios that happen like generally, right? And if we are still in a position that we are not able to find out the issue, then at last we do have to go to this layer approach. By going through this layer approach, we are actually going through each of the configuration that the system has, and there itself we are trying to explore each of the configuration that the system is having, and absolutely we will be finding out the answers in any of the layer. And just to answer your question, like it will exactly lie in the networking part.
Yeah, as you said, that would belong to the application kind of, but we cannot exclude it fully. But then we also have to loop through each of those layers in the sense that security, for example, belongs to each layer, isn't it?
Yeah,
as you said
exactly.
rightly.
Exactly. So a security like is a kind of a thing that should be included in each of the layers. So this is not something that we have to think outside of this. This needs to be integrated in each of the layer, and we do have to make sure that each of the configuration that we had made inside the system is secure. Any more doubts do we have?
So just one thing. So you are suggesting this is the second option of mentally I mean thinking in this direction, or it's the first choice?
No, no, no. It is not the first choice. You will be you can exactly solve out most of the production outage by using the common answers that you guys have actually provided us.
Right.
So most of the things will be actually sorted by that thing. But if you are having a blank screen and you don't know where to navigate, okay, so you can exactly follow this approach, which will actually uncover all the configuration, all the things in your system to get familiar with each of the things. And from each of the layer, like if you are exploring each of the layer, you can find out the issue existing in one of the layers, right?
Okay, makes sense.
Any more doubts do we have related to that? Okay, so let's do one thing as of now, since we have exceeded our time. So let's do one thing. Since we are aware about what exactly to debug as of now, so like on the squad wise, like each of the squad will actually try to get inside each of the layer and try to see what all configuration we can make in terms of cloud in each of the layers. We will first try to list out all of the configuration that we can make, and then we'll try to see if like if that specific configuration has been misconfigured, or if there is any external factors that can actually push it to be misconfigured. So we will be like exactly trying to note that down, and we'll be going through each of the layer, try to find out all the possibilities that each of the layer contain, try to find out all of the answers in each of the layer, and let's try to create out a document first that will include all of your research that on each of the layer you have actually explored this configuration and this configuration, and you think that this specific configuration can introduce this whole production issue that you can see. So like as of now, we have to move squad by squad. All the squad will actually try to go into each of the layer detail, try to see the configuration, and then try to predict that which of the misconfiguration can actually produce this production outage. Then at last, like after it will actually take me also to create out an RCA. Okay, so I will be actually creating out a detailed RCA that will consist of all the stay, like all the commands, like everything on each of the layer. And at last, I will be explaining you each of the layers that you can see, and everything will be like included in that RCA, and you can then go through the solution. But like before exactly jumping into the solution statement, I want you guys to go ahead and try to uncover this like whole layer configuration and everything, and try to create out an RCA out of it. And then after that, I will be sharing out an RCA, and then we can have a discussion on that. And for this specific task, you are having let's suppose maximum of 30 hours of it. Okay, then after specifically 30 hours, I will be like I will be exactly providing you the document of that RCA. That will be a detailed explanation on each of the layers. Okay, and at last we'll be having a call, like if you are having any doubts or anything to solve this production outage.
But how will we know that if we have hit the right spot, right issue?
So you don't have to hit out the right spot as of now. You just have to go through each of the layer and the configuration and the probable misconfiguration that can introduce this production outage. So by actually going through each of the layer detail, you will be exactly finding out the new concepts that like exactly can introduce this like a production outage, and I guess that will be a win part rather than directly jumping into a solution statement. Like if I have to, like I can directly speak about the solution statement, but that is not the learning curve. So the idea is like if you guys can jump into each of the layers, try to find out the new concept, and then try to learn the new concept like specifically for the each of the layers. And at last, if you guys can think of a scenario that this specific configuration can introduce this production outage, and at last we'll be having a call where I will be speaking about that this specific configuration has actually brought this whole production outage.
You have a specific problem to think of to navigate to the solution document you think you are looking for, or the problem outage you discussed before?
I don't know. So like I want you guys to go through each of the configuration only. I mean just like all the
like
configuration.
if you consider a cloud environment, there are like different resources. For example, if it is a virtual machine or if it is a VPC, there are each resources, and how can we approach the solution you described here, right? So or if it's a scenario, if it's a production outage, we can approach this layer, the OSI model approach what you discussed. But if you specifically say it's a configuration issue that you describe, if you say generally, then how we can think in our mind to put it in a document.
Okay, so the like the idea behind actually giving this assignment is to explore all the new things that is like exactly under this each of the layers. If you want an assistant over it, then I can exactly provide you the things and configuration that exactly can cause out this issue, and then you guys can explore that topic only.
If I understand correct, Saurabh, right? The 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 the, the demand, it's not like from your side, but to make these things fit into this model, right?
Mhm.
It needs
Absolutely.
a deeper understanding of SSH, right? What you explain, right?
Mhm.
So which means like we have to again go back and learn the end-to-end, the working of SSH, and then we are in better position to identify it and bring those things back into this model, right? In this sheet, is
Absolutely.
that something the good approach?
Absolutely. That's what we have
Okay.
to do. Yeah. Like, and like if you want assistant over it, they can actually provide you all the concepts that you need to uncover in each of the layer, and then we can go ahead and uncover those.
Okay.
But
Do you have any quick resources? I mean, like you definitely provided, but those are big books, right? It's not possible to go through those.
so
Yes,
let
sir.
me do one
Those
thing.
are
I will
very
be
exhaustive lists, sir. I agree with Anuj, sir.
okay. So let me do one thing as of now. I will be like exactly providing you a document that will introduce you to the different concepts of each of the layer things, and then you guys can explore that concepts and try to relate the production outage that we have in this example with the configuration that of this and after that you will be having an idea that this specific configuration can actually produce this production outage. So I will be creating out a document that will actually consist of each of the layer topics that you need to explore, and from there itself you can go ahead and start debugging on that.
And sort of the
Sorry.
architecture that you have explained for the SSH. So if you also include that one, definitely it will help us as well.
Yeah, I wanted to say that. Do you also have like a documentation that that shows the explanations that you've done earlier today?
Actually, I need to create out documentation on that. So I will be creating out documentation on that, and you guys can revisit the recording of this video, so you can have a better clarity on what exactly we have talked about.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So any more doubts that we have?
And we have to create this document per squad, right? So
Exactly. Exactly. Per squad.
it needs some I mean like the pairing from our side as well, right? I mean like we have to coordinate, uh, at least the managers, right, need to coordinate the
Exactly.
team, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So is the squad based purely on the uh, which cloud we are using or we are aligned to? Because you said that these concepts are
Mhm.
cloud agnostic. I mean, we don't really care what tools are used, but the
Mhm.
essential mental model and the concepts remain the same.
Yeah.
So we can say, for example, if I'm aligned more to GCP, I could
Mhm.
also connect with people who are in AWS if I have got some enough information or questions that I've got, and we together can relate to both the clouds and form a form it at the level of the framework that you're talking about.
Exactly. Exactly. You can. Okay. Any more doubts or questions do we have? Okay.
So are we going to discuss the first?
I guess like someone is trying to say something. I missed it.
Yeah, this is Vaibhav, and I'm asking like when are we going to discuss the first approach of the
So
solution?
like after actually completing the RCA from your side, that is exactly the 30-hour limit. We can have a quick session where I will be explaining you about the solution statement, and I will be also providing you a detailed RCA that will exactly consist of everything that we have to do in order to troubleshoot this.
So that will happen in weekdays.
Yeah, yeah. So the idea is like if you guys can work as a team to create out an RCA, and then like we guys can actually review the RCA cross teams, and then at last we'll be having a final RCA, and we'll be actually moving
Possible
up to the
if we
solution stage.
to have this call in a weekday?
I missed it, Santosh. If you can actually come up again.
No, so I said, how can we do this in a weekday with time zone differences?
Yeah. Actually, the idea is exactly to complete this in the weekend. So, like, we do have a Discord server. So, like, if you feel that you are exactly okay with the time, you do have to communicate the same thing with the squad that you are into, and then you guys can finalize a common time and can start the discussion.
And also, what's the responsibility of the cloud manager here? I don't think we have ever
No,
gone
no.
through that.
So the responsibility of the cloud manager will be like to exactly uh, present out the RCA in the call itself. So that's all.
Okay, but are you responsible for creating the the environment, whatever we are supposed to do, or is it the responsibility of the cloud manager to take care of that?
Like if you'll ask me about the labs and all, that is
Yeah.
supposed to be created by the cloud manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Saurabh. I have one silly question.
Yeah. Please.
So, what you have mentioned that the means where they that the exactly solution was that the SSS, the configuration, that the authentication PAM, or is there another solution or
So that wasn't the solution statement that I was just explained, and how exactly the Bastion is actually communicating to the prod. That was the ideal scenario.
okay? So what you mentioned that the all the layers that what we are discussing. So we have to find the other kind of the solutions like they are not aligned with this logs and all like the SSH. So we have to find like another solutions to each layer.
Exactly. So you do
So
have to
it
go
could
through
be
each of the
yeah,
layers, try to find out the.
yeah. So we
Go ahead.
have to look in very deep inside the layers, and it could be uh, I don't know, but it could be uh, one more or two, three solutions. So I don't
Mhm.
understand that things.
So, like, if you can explain about those things that you haven't understand here.
I just wanted to know that you have to mention that the scenario only that the authentication like that the KD says and all that the things. So these were
Mhm.
the part of the all the approach, right? So we don't know the
Mhm.
solution yet. So I just wanted to know that
Exactly. So that's the assignment. So like if you'll ask me, that's the assignment that you have to explore each of the things on each of the layer specific to this production outage only. By exploring each of the things, you will be having an idea that what all configuration we store on each of the layer according to the SSH. So that's the assignment that you have to perform with the team.
Okay,
Thanks.
understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
And are we getting instructions how to reproduce?
That has already been produced in the cloud providers by the cloud managers.
Okay. Thank you.
So in that
Anyone's doubts?
instruction, sort of you mentioned, like for example, if I give example of packet drop, right? So
Mhm.
I kind of simulate that through the shell scripting. Now, if I what I understood from your session, right? All these things are working fine, right? So
Mhm.
how you are saying that it's reproducible, right? I'm like,
So the exact case is not reproducible. So we are just like exactly simulating the framework only, not
hmm,
exactly
hmm,
production outage. I mean, that is exactly a subjective to the network of the 30 users in this problem segment. So that is not like exactly reproducible. So like as of now, at to an extent, whatever we can
hmm.
reproduce in the labs we had.
Okay. So even if I take the example in the document, right? If I produce the layer model, right, it will be similar, right? So no matter what problem we are targeting, right,
Mhm.
the approach is going to be same, right? So even if I take the packet drop example, right, and I started mapping this, right, just to get myself, acquainted with the approach, right? So if that
Mhm.
is also fine, so that will ultimately leads to me the problem you are describing also, right?
Exactly, exactly. So the idea is to explore the new concept on each of the layers. So
Right.
like as of now, like if you will see, we haven't discussed about the FD limits uh, uh, and the I nodes and all. So that can actually create this issue, right? So the idea is to explore the new concept on each of the layer that could actually possibly cause this a production like issue. That also that all solutions that we have like explained in this session only. So we don't have to explore that specific part. We just have to explore those kind of things that is actually left in this session to explore on the concepts and all.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess the confusion that we are having, sir, is like, what are we trying to achieve? In the sense, I understand we are trying to explore the configuration and whatnot, right? But you have there is also the scenario where you have mentioned this is the outage we are having. How do we approach that solution? Is what it seems to be the confusion. Like, how do we know that, hey, we have hit the target or we have addressed the outage? Probably is
So
where
like Mhm.
wrap our head around.
Exactly, Santosh. So the idea is to actually get familiar with the you can say the new concepts and all, and that can actually lead to this a solution statement. So the idea is to first understand each of the new concept in each of the layer, and then to talk about the solution statement. So you can go in every direction, and for like to give you a direction, I will be sharing you out a documentation that will limit you to some of the concepts that you need to explore, and based on that you need to determine that what are the concepts that can cause this issue. So the idea of this assignment is to teach you about like all of the configuration of the Linux at each of the layer, the networking concepts and all and all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more doubts do we have?
So the objective, as Santosh was saying, is we are trying to plow it forward in the sense that to get to a solution, we need to get to a root cause analysis. But that is enabled, say, by the concept that we're going to explore. So the exact
Exactly.
situation that got played out in a particular situation of 30 users may not
Mhm.
be the same reason every time, but we would be well equipped. Say, for example, we are hiking, we take some things with us, tools to hike, go up the mountain. If it is a snowy pitch, it could be different. It could be a greener pasture, it could be different. But ultimately we are trying to equip ourselves with all the tools. Am I getting it correct in a way that,
Exactly.
and also be able to map it to the right things instead of just getting it in a very unstructured way where we hack it, do something and then lose it. So we form it into a structure so that whatever we do will gel together and form into a body of like something that can carry in our heads to be able to say with more confidence that this could be it or this could not be it, or converge onto a solution much quicker, having that kind of conceptual or the mental map in mind.
Like absolutely, that's the motive behind this.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so I believe now, like up until now, we are absolutely clear about the problem statement that we have. We have also done and some implemented some common checklist solution that you guys have provided us, and by that we are not able to find out the solution. Now we have decided to go through a structured roadmap on how exactly to solve this if this is the issue related to the system. On that system layer, we have identified that we can go through each of the layer and can find where the issue is residing any of the layers, and then we can talk about the solution statement. That's what we are like up to now, right? I hope we all are on the same page.
Yes.
Yes.
Sounds good. So yeah, I mean that's the part, and I believe like if you will explore each of the layer, you will be finding out you can say a new like overall new concepts of Linux, networking, security, and all, and that will actually tell you about what all configuration you have to do in order to set up a VM from the next time in the production, and what all things you don't have to do. So from there, you will be having a learning curve at how exactly to think in this kind of a scenario where it is not being solved by a common checklist, and then how to think and how to get along a solution statement. Sounds good. So I believe we are on the same page. So let's start debugging this problem statement according to the teams that we have. And based on the squad, let's try to create out an RCA per squad. And then after creation of the RCA from each of the squad, we will be sharing you out an RCA that will be a detailed one. And then after that, we can have a call to further understand each of the things and all if you are having any kind of doubts and all. So I hope everything is pretty clear to you guys as of now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, so I believe that is it for today's session. And if you don't have any doubts, any questions, so we can wrap it up. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining it. And if you are having any doubts, you can reach out to me on WhatsApp, on Discord, and I will be happy to help you out in this debugging steps.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.